I unexpectedly inherited a $40 million fortune. I was rushing home to share the amazing news with my husband when the probate attorney told me, "Your husband secretly divorced you 2 months ago." I stayed silent for exactly 1 second, then burst out laughing. "Well, that's incredibly lucky," I said. "Let's see what my husband does when he finds out the earth-shattering news." Asterisk. A sudden downpour swept over the city, turning the sky as heavy and gray as my heart had been for the past month. Clutching a blue legal folder tightly to my chest, I hurried into the lobby of a probate law firm in downtown Austin, Texas. The blast of air conditioning made me shiver. Today was exactly 1 month since my father's funeral, and the day the attorney had summoned me to finalize the estate transfer. My father, a man who had worked himself to the bone building a real estate empire from absolutely nothing, had passed away suddenly from a severe illness. He left behind a staggering fortune that even I hadn't anticipated. $40 million, comprising prime commercial real estate, stock portfolios, and a massive amount of liquid cash. A sum this large could crush anyone with a weak heart. But for me, in this exact moment, it was the ultimate lifeline. It was the only way to save the tech software startup my husband and I had poured our souls into, which was currently teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. I sat down in the leather chair, trying to steady my breathing, painting a picture of tonight in my mind. I would go home early, stop by Whole Foods to buy 2 prime steaks and a bottle of his favorite Cabernet, and cook a perfect dinner. For the last 5 years, ever since we started our company, my husband, Nathan, had suffered so much. He was a brilliant but struggling man, constantly drowning in code night after night. His hair was already graying in his early 30s. I couldn't wait to see his face light up when he realized we no longer had to take out predatory high-interest loans just to make payroll. Thinking of Nathan's gentle smile, the corners of my mouth curled up. I silently thanked my Father in heaven for always watching over his little girl. The probate attorney, a middle-aged man with thick glasses, slowly flipped through my file. The crisp rustle of paper echoed dryly in the quiet office. After typing furiously on his keyboard, he stopped, frowned at his monitor, and looked at me with a very strange expression. He slid my ID and my marriage certificate back across the desk toward me. His voice was even, but it hit me like a bucket of ice water. "Miss Lauren, this marriage certificate is no longer legally valid for the purpose of joint marital asset declaration. According to the state registry, you and Mr. Nathan Hayes finalized an uncontested divorce. The judge signed the decree 2 months ago." I sat dead silent. My ears rang as if a freight train was blowing its horn inside my head. The hand holding my pen froze in midair. "What did you just say?" I stammered, my voice cracking in panic. "Divorced? Are you making a mistake? My husband and I are living together normally." He kissed me on the forehead before leaving for work this morning. The attorney looked at me with a mix of pity and hesitation. He turned his monitor to face me, pointing at a line of red text displaying my marital status. Asterisk, asterisk, divorced. Asterisk, asterisk. The court records show it was a mutual, uncontested divorce with no asset disputes, he explained gently. You waived your right to any division of marital assets in exchange for a swift, finalized separation. Don't you remember signing this? Memories rushed back like a slow-motion film, sharp and utterly cruel. 3 months ago, on a stormy night, Nathan had brought home a massive stack of thick legal documents, looking incredibly stressed. He gripped my hands, his voice desperate. Asterisk, Lauren, the company is about to enter a new round of venture capital funding. The investors demand our legal liability be completely insulated. I need us to file for a temporary legal separation and asset division to exploit a tax loophole and protect you from liability. If the company goes under, I don't want you dragged down with my debt. Please, just sign these. It's a pure formality. Once the funding clears, we'll remarry immediately. Asterisk. Trusting my husband implicitly, trusting the man who had shared ramen noodles with me during our poorest days, I signed the papers without reading the dense legal jargon hidden within the corporate restructuring documents. It turned out that buried among those dry economic terms was a fully prepared, calculated, uncontested divorce petition. I sat paralyzed, feeling as if someone had hollowed out my chest. A cold draft hit my spine, But strangely enough, I didn't cry. I didn't faint like a weak damsel in distress. The blood in my veins seemed to boil, then suddenly freeze into solid ice. I began doing mental math. A simple, brutal calculation. My father died 1 month ago. That meant he passed away exactly times 1 month after my divorce decree became legally binding asterisk. Under state inheritance laws, assets acquired after the dissolution of marriage are sole and separate property. Asterisk. This $40 million is entirely mine. Nathan has absolutely no legal right to touch a single red cent. Asterisk. The sheer irony of destiny made me burst out laughing. A loud, ringing laugh echoed through the quiet law office, making the paralegals turn and stare at me like I was a lunatic. I laughed until tears streamed down my face, laughing at my own pathetic, naive stupidity, and laughing at Nathan's seasoned, yet incredibly sloppy calculation. He was in such a rush to discard me to protect his assets, or chase whatever he was chasing, that he accidentally dropped the biggest gold mine of his entire life. I fiercely wiped away the tear that had rolled down my cheek, held my head high, looked the attorney in the eye, and spoke clearly. Well, that's incredibly lucky. Thank you. This is the best news I've heard all year. Please proceed with confirming this estate as my sole and separate property immediately. Holding the confirmation documents, I walked out the door. The rain was still pouring, but the storm in my heart had completely cleared, leaving behind a terrifying calmness in the face of the massive hurricane about to make landfall. Leaving the law office, I didn't go home right away. The cramped, moldy rental house my husband and I had lived in for 5 years suddenly felt alien and terrifying in my mind. I pulled my car over at a roadside cafe and ordered a black cold brew, no sugar. The bitter, astringent taste, spreading across my tongue, kept me sharper than ever. I pulled out my phone and dialed Hunter, an old friend and former police detective who now ran a private investigation firm. Hunter was a man of few words, meticulously careful, and absolutely loyal, the exact person I needed right now. Hunter, I need you to ping the exact GPS location of this phone number and tell me where the owner is and what he's doing right now. I sent Nathan's number to Hunter immediately. My voice was so icy that even I found it unfamiliar. Less than 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A GPS pin and a few covertly taken photos were sent to me. The location wasn't San Francisco, where Nathan claimed he was on a 3-day business trip to meet investors. It was the Times Emerald Tower asterisk, an ultra-luxury high-rise overlooking the river, barely 3 miles from where I lived. I drove there. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still slick, reflecting the neon city lights in blurry streaks. I parked in a blind spot, rolling my window down just enough to observe the main lobby of the building. My heart hammered against my ribs, each beat striking my chest like a painful hammer blow. Around 6 p.m., a sleek, white Mercedes-Benz pulled up to the entrance. The door opened, and Nathan stepped out. He was wearing a designer polo shirt and khaki shorts, looking relaxed and radiant, completely different from the perpetually scowling husband who constantly complained about work pressure every time he came home to me. But what made me freeze wasn't Nathan's appearance. It was the woman and the child who stepped out of the car with him. Nathan wrapped his arm around the woman's waist, leaning down to plant a loving kiss on her cheek. In his other arm, he carried a chubby, giggling little boy who looked about 4 years old. The woman turned her face, and the lobby lights clearly illuminated her stunning features. It felt as if someone had dumped a bucket of boiling water from the top of my head down to my toes. Asterisk Samantha. Asterisk it was Sam, the young girl from a poverty-stricken town in Appalachia with wide, innocent eyes, whom I had met during a charity trip 5 years ago. Memories flooded back, cutting like a jagged knife. Back then, Sam was 19, skinny and tanned, being forced into a traumatic marriage by her parents to pay off a debt. Out of deep pity for the bright girl, I didn't hesitate to withdraw $10,000 from my personal savings, the money I had saved for my own fertility treatments, to pay off her family's debt and free her. I brought Sam to the city, paid for her housing and college tuition, and even got her an entry-level job at a partner company. Sam used to come to my house all the time. Her mouth was always dripping with honey. Asterisk Lauren, Nathan, You guys are my guardian angels. Asterisk. Every time Nathan and I argued over money, or our inability to have a child, Sam would tear up, hold my hand, and comfort me, telling me to take care of my health. It turned out it was all a flawless, sickening theatrical performance. That little boy looked exactly like Nathan, and judging by his height, he had to be about 4 years old. What did that mean? It meant they had been sleeping together shortly after I brought Sam to the city. It meant that while I was exhausting myself running to fertility clinics praying for a child, my husband already had a warm, happy family on the side. It meant that the money I scraped together, the meals I skipped, were all taken by Nathan to fund his wife and child in this luxurious high-rise. I watched as Nathan bent down to tie Sam's shoelaces, an act he hadn't done for me in 5 years. Sam stroked his hair. Her smile no longer held the timid, innocent charm of the country girl I once knew. It radiated the triumphant, satisfied aura of a queen. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly, my fingernails dug into my flesh, drawing blood. But that physical pain was nothing compared to the bleeding wound in my heart. A wave of absolute disgust rose to my throat. I hadn't just been betrayed by my husband. I had been stabbed in the back by the very person I had saved. The saying, asterisk, bite the hand that feeds you, asterisk had never manifested in my life so bitterly and cruelly. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and swallowed my tears. Asterisk, fine. Nathan, Samantha, you've taught me an unforgettable lesson about human nature. Asterisk, I returned to our small, leaky rental house, in a deep, dark alley, the place that used to be a warm nest, holding the memories of our early startup days. For the past 5 years, even when the company started generating revenue, I had firmly refused to move to a nicer place, wanting to save every penny to reinvest in our future. I sat on the torn sofa, staring blankly into the dark void in front of me. On the coffee table lay a stack of surveillance photos Hunter the PI had just sent over. Every smile, every touch, Nathan gave that woman and child felt like a needle piercing my liver. The clock struck 10 p.m. The familiar sound of his car pulling into the driveway echoed outside. Nathan walked in, his face wearing a mask of fabricated exhaustion. He loosened his tie, tossed his leather briefcase onto the chair, and sighed. The board meetings were brutal today, babe. Those old guys in venture capital are making my head spin with their demands. If it were yesterday, I would have rushed to make him a warm honey lemon tea and massaged his shoulders. But today, I just sat completely still, coldly watching his clumsy theatrical act. Noticing my unnatural silence, Nathan paused. He stepped closer, reaching out to put a hand on my shoulder. What's wrong? Are you feeling okay? Or did something go wrong at work? I violently slapped his hand away and threw the stack of photos onto the glass coffee table. The crisp smack of paper hitting glass shattered the silence. The photos scattered everywhere, nakedly exposing him, carrying his secret son, and intimately embracing Samantha in the lobby of the luxury condo. Nathan froze, staring blankly at the undeniable evidence. His face morphed from shock to panic, and then, terrifyingly fast, settled into an expression of brazen, shameless composure. He didn't drop to his knees and beg for forgiveness. He didn't panic and try to explain, as I had imagined. He pulled up a chair, sat opposite me, and let out a long sigh, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. So you know everything. Good. Saves me the exhausting effort of hiding it anymore. His sheer audacity sent boiling blood rushing to my brain. Trembling, I pointed my finger in his face, my voice cracking with suppressed rage. What did you just say? Saves you the effort? I starved myself and wore rags to build this company with you from absolute zero. Just so you could use my blood and sweat to fund a mistress and a bastard child? Samantha? The girl I rescued and treated like a sister? How could you? Nathan let out a cynical smirk. The way he looked at me held not a single ounce of marital affection. It was pure, cold calculation. Lauren, you're a smart woman. You should understand what a man needs. It's been 5 years, and you couldn't give me a son to carry on my name. My mother back in Texas is losing sleep over wanting an heir. Samantha gave me that. Leo is my blood. I can't abandon him. I let out a broken, agonizing laugh. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. So the excuse for his despicable betrayal was sugar-coated with this hollow, patriarchal garbage about filial duty and heirs. I wiped my tears, stood up, and pointed at the door. Get out! Get the hell out of my house right now. As of today, you are no longer my husband, and you have absolutely no authority in my company. But Nathan didn't leave. He actually let out a mocking laugh. He slowly opened his laptop, which he always carried with him. He spun the screen to face me, displaying lines of complex, encrypted code running endlessly. His voice dropped, carrying a distinct, terrifying threat. You want to kick me out? Have you thought this through? The entire source code for the new software launching next week is in my hands. I am the CTO. I hold the only encryption keys. If you dare make a scene, or touch Samantha and my son, I will wipe the servers clean. Or I'll just sell the code to our competitors for pennies on the dollar. He slammed the laptop shut with a loud Times clack asterisk, looking at me with pure defiance. If I do that, the company your father invested his life savings into will be nothing but digital scrap metal. You choose. Accept Samantha and Leo, or watch your father's legacy go up in smoke. I stood paralyzed, an overwhelming sense of helplessness consuming my mind. It turned out the man I shared my bed with was the very person holding a knife to my jugular. Nathan's threat was a fatal strike, targeting my absolute biggest weakness right now. The upcoming software launch wasn't just 5 years of our blood and sweat. It was my late father's final wish, and the only hope to save the company from its crushing debt. If Nathan deleted the source code or leaked it, the company's reputation would be destroyed, hundreds of employees would lose their jobs, and I would be the criminal who ruined my family's legacy. I looked at the man sitting before me, legs crossed with a triumphant smirk. The hatred inside me boiled like a violent storm, but my logic forced me to push it down to the darkest depths of my soul. I knew that a direct confrontation right now would be like throwing eggs at a brick wall. I needed time. I needed a flawless plan to flip the chessboard. I took a deep breath, trying to control my facial muscles. My voice dropped, sounding submissive and weak. Can you give me some time to think? This is too sudden. I'm completely in shock. Despite everything, we've had 5 years together. Please don't back me into a corner like this. Seeing me back down, Nathan grew even more arrogant. He stood up, adjusted his collar, his tone dripping with condescending mercy. Fine. I'll give you 3 days to calm down. I don't want to burn bridges, assuming you know your place. If you accept giving Leo his rightful status, I will continue to dedicate myself to the company. With that, he grabbed his briefcase and walked out, leaving me alone in the empty, chillingly cold house. The second Nathan's shadow disappeared behind the door, I sprinted to my home office and, with shaking hands, turned on my computer. I called my family's private attorney and a highly respected cybersecurity expert for a consultation. The answer I received felt like a bucket of ice water. Because Nathan was the chief technology officer, he possessed absolute administrative privileges over the infrastructure. Any aggressive external attempt to bypass him could trigger a dead man's switch data wipe protocol he had likely pre-installed. The path to reclaiming immediate control was sealed shut. I was forced to take a detour, one that was infinitely more agonizing and treacherous. Asterisk, sleeping on thorns and tasting gall. Asterisk. The next morning, I arrived at the company with dark circles under my eyes and a haggard face, but no one knew the fire of vengeance smoldering inside me. I began playing the role of the pathetically devoted wife, trying to salvage her marriage through concession. I texted Nathan, telling him I needed him to focus on the product launch, and we would figure out our family issues later. Simultaneously, I secretly instructed the accounting department, who were absolutely loyal to my late father, to covertly audit and trace every single transaction the company had made over the last 5 years. I didn't believe a man harboring a secret family, buying luxury condos and cars, was living solely on a CTO's salary. There had to be shady expenses, ghost contracts he had covered up using his authority. The following days were a horrific psychological torture for me. I had to watch Nathan strut around the office arrogantly, occasionally yelling at staff to flex his power. He was absolutely certain he had me by the throat, confident I had accepted sharing my husband to save the business. Every night, I sat alone in my office, cross-referencing thousands of numbers on massive financial reports. My eyes blurred from the endless spreadsheets, but then a ray of light pierced through the pitch-black darkness. I discovered a recurring monthly system maintenance fee being wired to a subsidiary company with a phantom address. The amounts were broken down into small chunks, but accumulated over 5 years, it was a staggering sum, more than enough to buy the luxury condo he was currently living in. Asterisk, got it. Asterisk. Evidence of corporate embezzlement. The metaphorical handcuffs were slowly materializing, waiting to snap shut around the trader's wrists. Finding proof of Nathan's embezzlement was a massive step, but it wasn't enough to solve the most urgent crisis, the new product. If I sent him to prison right now, he would trigger the malware or wipe the servers remotely. The company would still die. I needed a technical solution, someone talented enough to bypass Nathan, secretly rebuild the entire back-end system, and do it without alerting him. My mind raced through a list of tech names in the industry, but they were either intimidated by Nathan's reputation or had some underlying connection to him. Suddenly, the name times Hayes Times flashed in my mind like lightning. Hayes was the CEO of a small tech startup, a direct competitor whom Nathan deeply despised and constantly belittled. During previous bidding wars, Nathan used every dirty trick to box Hayes' company out, even spreading vicious rumors to ruin his credibility. I remembered Nathan gloating once, asterisk, that kid Hayes is just a bottom feeder. Sure, he's got some coding skills, but he doesn't know how to play the game. He'll never make it. Asterisk. Nathan's sheer arrogance and hatred for Hayes was exactly why I believed Hayes was the only person who could help me now. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I arranged to meet Hayes at a quiet, garden cafe tucked deep inside a suburban alley in Austin, separated from the noise of the city. Hayes arrived exactly on time. He wore a simple white button-down shirt and dark slacks. He looked academic, but his eyes radiated intelligence and unyielding resolve. Unlike Nathan's slick, polished exterior, Hayes gave off an aura of raw sincerity and groundedness. When he saw me, he looked slightly surprised but politely pulled out a chair, his eyes analyzing me. "Hello, Lauren. I was quite surprised to receive your invitation. Isn't your company about to launch a massive product? What do you need me for?" I didn't beat around the bush. I laid the cards on the table. "I want to invite you to collaborate on a highly classified project. I need you and your team to entirely replace my company's current technical infrastructure. Rewrite the source code from scratch, make it superior, and far more secure than the current one. You have exactly 20 days. Hayes was stunned. He frowned at me as if I was joking. "Lauren, do you realize what you're asking? 20 days to rebuild a system your husband spent 5 years building. And why me? Your husband is the CTO." I looked him dead in the eye, my voice unwavering. "Because I no longer trust my husband. And because I know you are the only one capable of defeating him on a technical level. To prove my sincerity, I slid a draft contract across the table, a document I had stayed up all night writing. If you agree, I will immediately transfer 35% of my company's equity to you. You will become the second largest shareholder with absolute executive authority over technology. I know you've always harbored groundbreaking ideas, but lacked the capital. This is your chance to realize your dream." 35% was a colossal price tag, a dangerous gamble that would make any venture capitalist lose their mind. I was wagering my entire inheritance on a stranger, but my intuition told me Hayes was trustworthy. Hayes picked up the contract, scanning the terms, but his eyes didn't linger on the lucrative profit margins. He placed the paper down and looked at me deeply. A strange emotion flashed in his eyes, a mix of deep sentiment and someone searching through a very distant memory. He didn't eagerly accept. Instead, he spoke slowly. "Lauren, do you really not remember who I am? Or did you only seek me out because I'm your husband's rival?" His question caught me off guard. I frantically searched my memory, but found absolutely nothing. I shook my head. "I'm sorry, Hayes. Have we met before?" Aside from crossing paths at pitch meetings, I truly don't have any other recollection. Hayes smiled a gentle smile that lit up his somewhat rugged face. He swirled his coffee cup, his voice dropping, carrying the weight of days long past. It makes sense you wouldn't remember. 15 years ago, during a charity outreach trip in rural Appalachia, you went with your father. You were just a college freshman then, wearing a simple white dress, looking like an angel. Among the crowd of dirty, runny-nosed kids that day, there was one incredibly skinny boy wearing a torn shirt, hiding behind a wooden pillar. I froze. Memories of my first charity trip with my dad suddenly rushed back. Back then, my father was still healthy and strong. He always taught me to share with those less fortunate. I vaguely remembered a young boy with eyes as bright as the night sky, who kept sneaking glances at me before looking down in embarrassment. Hayes looked at me, his eyes brimming with tears. I was that boy. You slipped a chocolate bar into my hand, and your father committed to sponsoring my education all the way through college. Throughout those years, your letters of encouragement and your father's silent financial support were the only things that pulled me out of poverty and allowed me to become the software engineer I am today. My nose stung. Tears threatened to spill. While I bitterly realized I had nurtured a viper when I saved Samantha, in another part of the world, the seeds of kindness my father and I planted years ago had silently taken root, growing into a massive oak tree, ready to shield me from the storm. Karma truly exists. Kindness is never wasted. It simply waits for the right moment to repay the one who sowed it. I choked back a sob. It was you. Thank you for not forgetting my father and me. Hayes shook his head adamantly. I am the one who must thank you. I could spend my entire life and never fully repay this debt of gratitude. I agree to help you, not for the 35% equity, but because I cannot stand by and watch my benefactor's life's work be destroyed by a scumbag. We quickly got to work. To avoid Nathan's suspicion and his corporate spies, Hayes suggested setting up a secret lab in an old, secluded estate in the suburbs. He mobilized his most elite team of engineers, young, passionate, and brilliant minds who worked day and night without resting. Their mission was to deconstruct the old software architecture, write a completely independent new source code, and crucially, create a backdoor to neutralize Nathan's access at the final hour. Watching Hayes direct his team, his professionalism and decisiveness put me at ease. In stark contrast to his academic appearance, when it came to work, Hayes was a true general, meticulous with every line of code, cautious with every algorithm. He told me, just focus on playing the submissive wife. Leave the tech to me. 20 days is an insane challenge, but with this motivation, I know we'll pull it off. Launch day will be his doomsday. Looking at the blazing lights of Hayes' team working through the night, I felt a new surge of vitality flowing through my veins. I was no longer alone in this war. By my side was a solid ally, a man bound by gratitude and honor. I was going to win this chess match. Returning from the secret meeting with Hayes, my heart felt a bit lighter, but the burden on my shoulders hadn't lessened. 20 days. That was the life or death deadline Hayes needed to rewrite the entire system. It was also the amount of time I had to bite my tongue and flawlessly play the role of an idiotically devoted wife. I sat in my office. The yellow light cast a glow on a dusty wedding photo on my desk. A wave of indescribable bitterness washed over me. To ensure Nathan remained unsuspecting and lowered his guard, I decided to use money to buy a fake piece, a risky but necessary move. I picked up my phone and drafted a long text message. Every word I typed felt like a knife cutting into my own dignity. Asterisk Nathan, I've thought about it thoroughly. I agree to give you time, and I won't make things difficult regarding the boy. But you must promise to keep your word and ensure the product launch goes flawlessly. I just wired you $100,000. Consider it an advance on this year's dividends, so you can take care of your family matters. Asterisk, less than a minute after sending the text, my phone pinged with a reply. It was so fast I could easily picture the ecstatic look on Nathan's face. His reply had a completely different tone than his previous hostility. Asterisk, thank you for understanding, babe. I knew you were the most forgiving woman in the world. I'll handle everything at the company. You just relax and rest. Asterisk. Reading those fake, sickening words made me want to vomit. He had no idea that the $100,000 I just sent him was nothing but bait scattering corn in the yard to lure the chicken into the coop, fattening it up before slaughter day. I sighed, closed my laptop, and stepped out onto the balcony. Looking down at the glittering city lights, I told myself to be incredibly patient, because the real show was yet to come. With a fresh injection of cash, Nathan's hedonistic nature instantly flared up. He requested 3 days of PTO, claiming he was going on a market research trip to Miami. In reality, he was taking Samantha and their son on a luxury vacation at a 5-star oceanfront resort. Hunter, my private investigator, sent me crystal-clear, high-definition photos. Nathan was wearing flashy swim trunks, holding a cocktail, lounging on a sunbed. Right beside him was Samantha in a revealing bikini, rubbing sunscreen on his chest. They looked exactly like a blissful honeymoon couple, completely forgetting the existence of his legally wedded wife who was slaving away day and night back in Texas. I looked at the photo of Samantha grinning ear to ear. I suddenly remembered the timid, dirt-poor girl from years ago who gratefully accepted my old clothes. My money, my father's blood and sweat, was currently nurturing traders, funding their royal lifestyle. I sat in my silent office, gnawing on a stale, cold sandwich from lunch. Tears of self-pity threatened to spill, but I swallowed them down. I opened the GPS tracker Hunter had covertly installed on Nathan's car. Watching the red dot move slowly along the Miami coastline, my heart turned to iron. Enjoy it, Nathan. Enjoy it, Samantha. Eat well, play hard. Because these beautiful, sunny days of yours are on a very strict countdown. I turned off my phone, went back to the towering stacks of accounting ledgers, and continued the hunt for evidence, gathering every microscopic proof of my husband's embezzlement. The sweetest revenge isn't a loud, screaming catfight. It's stripping them of everything they cherish most at the exact moment their guard is completely down. The 3 days of luxury vacation passed quickly. Nathan's wallet was significantly lighter, but his sheer audacity seemed to have multiplied tenfold. That afternoon, I came home from work early, intending to take a quick nap since I had been pulling all-nighters with Hayes's team. As I pushed open the heavy iron gate, I heard the loud, chaotic sounds of a child playing echoing from my front yard. My heart seized. My intuition screamed that something was very wrong. Walking into the living room, the sight before me made my blood freeze. Nathan was sitting on the sofa watching TV. Little Leo was running wildly around the house, tracking mud everywhere with his dirty shoes. And Samantha, my husband's mistress, was standing in my kitchen, wearing my favorite lavender apron. Seeing me frozen in the doorway, Nathan didn't look flustered at all. He just looked up, his tone completely casual, as if this was perfectly normal. "Oh, you're home." The AC at the condo broke the other day. It was too hot for Leo to sleep, so I brought them over here to crash for a few days. Our house has plenty of spare rooms. I know you aren't petty enough to kick a kid out onto the street. I gripped my purse straps tightly, desperately suppressing the violent rage vibrating in my chest. It turned out my fake concession had made him believe I was so weak and easily bullied that he dared to blatantly march his secret family right into my own home. Hearing the commotion, Samantha stepped out of the kitchen, holding a steaming bowl of hot and sour soup. The smell of cilantro and herbs hit my nose, but right now, it smelled nauseatingly foul. She looked at me, flashing a sugary sweet smile, but her eyes held a silent mocking challenge. "Oh, hi Lauren, you're back. I saw this beautiful fresh salmon in the fridge, so I took the liberty of making some soup. Nathan told me you're so busy with work you never have time to cook, and you just feed him sad takeout food." Poor guy. I made it exactly how he likes it. Wash your hands and come eat with us. Every word she spoke was like a needle, stabbing directly into my heart. She was implying I was a terrible wife who neglected her husband, while she was the true woman of the house, the one who knew how to build a home. I looked at the apron she was wearing, the apron I had cherished, bought during our anniversary trip to Napa Valley. Now, it was wrapped around the body of the woman who stole my husband. Seeing his mother bring out the food, little Leo cheered, ran over, and hugged Nathan's leg playfully. "Daddy, I'm hungry. Feed me." That sharp, innocent word times daddy times echoing naturally in my house sounded like a death sentence for my marriage. I wanted to lunge forward, flip the dining table, and rip the fake mask off these two adulterous sociopaths. But logic, the thought of the source code, pulled me back. I couldn't act recklessly right now. I needed Nathan to finish his work for the launch. I took a deep breath and forced a twisted, painful smile. We have VIP guests, and you didn't even warn me. Well, you guys, make yourselves at home. I'm feeling a bit exhausted, so I'm going to go rest in my room. I walked quickly into my bedroom, slammed the door shut, and locked it. I leaned against the cold wooden door, tears finally pouring down my face uncontrollably. Outside, the sound of cheerful laughter and the clinking of dishes mocked my sheer isolation inside my own home. I slid down to the floor, hugging my knees, feeling like a completely useless, unwanted guest in my own life. Their presence wasn't just a physical invasion of my space, it was the ultimate horrific insult to my dignity as a woman. I bit my lip until it bled to keep from sobbing out loud. I told myself, endure it, Lauren, just endure it a little longer. The pain you feel today will be your weapon for tomorrow. Asterisk. The next morning, I arrived at the office earlier than usual to avoid seeing the sickeningly happy family occupying my house. The moment I stepped into the lobby, I saw a crowd of employees gathered around, whispering and pointing toward the reception desk. A shrill, vicious woman's voice pierced through the morning chatter of the city. "Where is Lauren? Call that CEO bitch out here. You home-wrecking tramp. You steal someone else's husband, and you still have the nerve to show your face at work?" I froze. I recognized that thick, rural Appalachian accent immediately. It was Brenda Samantha's biological mother. The weather-beaten, poverty-stricken woman who had literally dropped to her knees thanking me when I paid off her family's debt. I parted the crowd and walked forward. Before my eyes was Brenda, wearing a garish, overly bright, floral outfit that looked utterly ridiculous in the sleek, modern corporate lobby. She had her hands on her hips, pointing her finger right in the face of the terrified receptionist, spitting as she yelled. Seeing me, she lunged forward like a starving tiger, spotting prey, screeching wildly. "Ah, there you are, you homewrecker. You leave my son-in-law alone. My Samantha and Nathan are legally married. They have a legally recognized union. Who the hell are you to cling to him and refuse to sign the divorce papers, and then lure him to your house?" I stood completely paralyzed, feeling like the floor had collapsed out from under me. Asterisk. In their family's eyes, I was the mistress. I was the one destroying her daughter's happiness. Asterisk. This brazen, reality-flipping narrative left me speechless. Nathan had tricked me into a divorce, then secretly married Samantha. And now, her mother was here demanding justice for her daughter by publicly humiliating me. Seeing my silence, Brenda felt empowered and escalated. She threw herself onto the polished marble floor, thrashing around, crying and wailing hysterically. "Oh, Lord above, look at this. A big CEO stealing a man. She thinks because she has money and power, she can back my daughter into a corner. God in heaven, bring justice for my child." The security guards rushed over, trying to help her up, but she thrashed violently, clawing and swinging her purse, making the guards back away hesitantly. I looked at the woman rolling on the ground, her hair a mess, her face distorted by greed and selfishness. Where was the image of the humble, suffering country mother who sacrificed for her kids? Nathan's money, or more accurately, the money times I times made, had turned her into a vicious monster, willing to trample her savior to protect her family's gold mine. I took a deep breath, regained my composure, and spoke coldly to the HR manager. "Call the police. Pull all the security footage from the last 20 minutes. I am pressing charges against her for disturbing the peace and criminal defamation." Hearing the word Times Police asterisk, Brenda's wailing abruptly stopped. She scrambled to her feet, dusting off her clothes. She glared at me with eyes as sharp as daggers. You dare call the cops on me? I am your boss's mother-in-law." I looked straight into her eyes. My gaze was so freezing cold it made her shudder and step back. "You are mistaken. Here, I am the CEO. Nathan is just a salaried employee. And more importantly, I don't have a trashy, uncultured mother-in-law like you." Brenda's face turned purple with rage, but seeing two police officers approaching in the distance, she quickly grabbed her gaudy handbag. She backed toward the door, pointing a finger at me, cursing loudly. "You just wait. My child won't let you get away with this. You evil, wicked bitch." Her curses echoed in the lobby, leaving me standing alone amidst the curious, pitying stares of my employees. My mouth tasted like ash, as if I had just swallowed a bowl of poison. The chaos of the morning had barely settled when, around noon, I received a call from Nathan. His voice was frantic, full of blame. "Lauren, what the hell kind of stunt did you pull at the office?" he demanded. "My mother-in-law. I mean, Sam's mother. She's an old, uneducated woman from the country. How could you be so heartless and call the cops on her? Sam heard her mom got assaulted by you, went into severe shock, and passed out. She's in the ER right now. You get your ass to the hospital immediately. If anything happens to her, I will never forgive you." I laughed a bitter, hollow laugh. He didn't ask if I had been humiliated. He only cared about his precious mother-in-law and his fragile mistress. But remembering the 2-0-day plan, I swallowed my rage. I took an Uber to the private luxury hospital where Sam was admitted. The VIP hospital room was spacious, smelling of expensive lemongrass essential oils, a far cry from the cramped, suffocating public hospital ward where my father spent his final days. Sam lay on the pristine white hospital bed, her face covered in pale makeup to look frail, but her eyes were still sharp and calculating. Seeing me walk in, Nathan, who was peeling an apple beside her, shot up and glared at me with burning hatred. Sam pretended to be weak, clutching her chest and coughing artificially. "Nathan, please don't yell at Lauren. She was probably just so angry she lost her temper with my mom. My life is so insignificant. I don't mind suffering a little, as long as our family is peaceful." Before I could even open my mouth to defend myself, Sam suddenly reached out and grabbed the fruit knife Nathan had left on the bedside table. Her movement was lightning fast. I had no time to react. She lightly dragged the blade across her wrist. Bright red blood instantly oozed out. Then, she let out a blood-curdling scream. "Ah! Lauren, why are you so evil? I already gave you my husband. Why do you still want to kill me?" The knife dropped to the floor with a sharp times clatter asterisk. Nathan spun around, saw Sam's bleeding wrist, and went into an absolute panic. He lunged forward to hold her, then spun back and slapped me across the face with explosive force. "You evil bitch. You brought a knife in here to murder her? Get the hell out!" The slap was so hard I stumbled and fell to the floor, my cheek burning like fire. My ears rang. Before I could even process what happened, a shadow burst through the hospital room door. It was Tyler, Sam's younger brother, a thug with bleached blonde hair and cheap tattoos covering his arms, who had been leeching off his sister and brother-in-law for months. Without saying a word, he delivered a brutal, savage kick directly to my stomach. "You dare hurt my sister. I'll kill you." The kick connected with my soft tissue. Agonizing pain shot through my body. I curled into a ball on the floor like a shrimp, feeling as if my internal organs had ruptured. I lay on the cold, sterile tiles. Through my tangled hair, I watched Nathan holding Sam tightly, comforting her, entirely ignoring the fact that I was being brutally assaulted right in front of his eyes. His eyes held nothing but absolute disgust and hatred for me. I tried to push myself up, but my strength was completely drained. Darkness slowly consumed my vision. As I passed out, I heard the nurses screaming for security, and the victorious, cynical laugh of Samantha echoing in my ears. Asterisk, very well. Blood debts must be paid in blood. Asterisk. The overwhelming stench of clinical antiseptic shocked me awake. A dull, throbbing pain radiating from my abdomen made me wince. Every muscle fiber felt like it was tearing as I tried to move. I opened my eyes to a cold, stark white ceiling. The rhythmic times beep, beep. Asterisk of a heart monitor beside me sounded incredibly lonely. I lay there, curled up under the thin hospital blanket, recalling the horrifying scene from this morning. I remembered the savage kick from the tattooed thug, and the cold, dead eyes of the man I used to share a bed with. The door creaked open. I held my breath. A tiny, pathetic sliver of hope flickered inside me. Maybe Nathan had come to apologize. Maybe he'd hold me like he used to when I was sick. But no. The person who walked in was indeed Nathan, but his face held absolutely zero sympathy. He pulled a plastic chair up next to the bed. The harsh scraping sound against the tile was grating. He threw a densely typed piece of paper onto my chest. His voice was flat and entirely void of emotion. "Since you're awake, sign this. It's a police waiver dropping all assault charges against Tyler. He's young and hot-headed. He just lost control for a second. Don't blow this out of proportion with lawsuits and cops." I picked up the paper. My hands shook with violent fury. Hot tears spilled from my eyes. I looked at the man in front of me, the man who once promised to protect me for the rest of my life. Now, he was forcing me to forgive the thug who beat his wife so badly she was hospitalized. "You're calling that losing control?" I choked out, my voice raspy. He kicked me so hard I suffered internal tissue damage. If I had died, what then? "You don't care about me at all. You only care about keeping your fake brother-in-law out of jail?" Nathan clicked his tongue, his face twisting into extreme annoyance. He stood up and began pacing the room like a caged animal. "Cut the dramatic poetry. If you hadn't brought a knife in to threaten Sam, would Tyler have hit you? You brought this entirely on yourself. Stop playing the victim." His sheer sociopathy left me paralyzed. My throat felt like it was blocked by a boulder. In his eyes, *I times was the instigator, and his mistress's family were the innocent, persecuted victims. I crumpled the waiver in my hand, ready to throw it right in his face, but the logical thought of my company's survival pulled me back. Seeing my hesitation, Nathan leaned down until his face was inches from mine. His breath felt like ice. "Lauren, listen to me very carefully. If you do not sign this, I will immediately pull the entire engineering team off the project. The product launch next week will be a catastrophic failure. You know exactly what I hold in my hands. Sign it, go home, recover quietly, and I will act like none of this ever happened." It was that same, despicable threat. He always knew exactly how to use my biggest vulnerability to manipulate me. I looked deep into his eyes. I saw nothing but pure, unadulterated selfishness and calculation. The last microscopic shred of marital affection inside me shattered into a million pieces, embedding themselves into my heart. I wiped my tears. I grabbed the pen off the bedside table. I signed my name with a sharp, decisive stroke. The scratch of the pen on the paper sounded like my own soul tearing apart. I shoved the paper into his chest. My voice was hoarse, but I enunciated every single word. "Fine." I signed it. "Take it and get the hell out of my sight. Remember your promise about the product launch." Nathan grabbed the paper and smirked triumphantly. He dusted off his sleeve, as if brushing off some filthy debris, turned around, and walked straight out the door. He didn't look back at his isolated, battered wife even once. Asterisk. Enduring this today is just sharpening the blade I will use to cut you down tomorrow. Asterisk. 3 days later, I was discharged and returned home. My body still ached, but my mind was made of steel. As soon as I walked through the door, I saw Sam lounging arrogantly on the sofa, scrolling through a tablet, looking at extravagant, luxury wedding dresses. Seeing me, she showed absolutely zero fear or remorse for the hospital incident. Instead, she jumped up to greet me with a bizarre, over-the-top enthusiasm. She grabbed my hand, her voice as sweet as syrup. "Lauren, you're finally home. I've been waiting for you. Oh my gosh, you have to come wedding dress shopping with me today. Nathan said you have the best taste. I need your help picking out the perfect gown for my big day." I shuddered, yanking my hand back as if I'd touched a venomous snake. I looked at her with pure disgust. "Are you insane? You're forcing the ex-wife to go pick out a wedding dress for the mistress? Do you have absolutely no shame?" Sam maintained her fake, sugary smile, but her eyes flashed with a razor-sharp glint. "Don't be so harsh. Nathan says we're all family now. You're the older sister. You should be more forgiving." She leaned in close to my ear, whispering cryptically. "Nathan said if you don't go with me, he's going to be very unhappy. And if he's unhappy, work at the company might just hit a few roadblocks." It was the same exact tactic. She and Nathan were taking turns using the company to back me into a corner, forcing me to swallow this ultimate humiliation. I clenched my jaw, nodded, and agreed to go with her, telling myself, asterisk, I'm going just to see how far this ridiculous play can go. Asterisk. At the most exclusive bridal boutique in Austin, brilliant crystal chandeliers, illuminated rows of pristine white gowns, the kind of dresses I had only ever dreamed of wearing. When Nathan and I got married, we just had a cheap courthouse ceremony and a modest dinner. I wore a rented, outdated dress. Now, Sam was trying on the most expensive designer gowns using the money born from my blood and sweat. Sam stepped out of the dressing room, looking radiant in a mermaid-style gown covered in thousands of sparkling rhinestones. She twirled in front of the mirror and asked, "What do you think, Lauren? Do I look better than you did on your wedding day?" Before I could answer, Sam suddenly grabbed a pair of large fabric shears that the tailor had left on a side table. With her back to the security cameras, moving faster than lightning, she slashed a massive tear right down the silk train of the dress. The sound of tearing fabric echoed sharply in the quiet boutique. Instantly, Sam threw the scissors at my feet. She covered her face, burst into loud, hysterical sobs, and wailed, "Lauren, why are you so evil? If you're jealous of me, just say so. Why did you ruin my wedding dress? This is the custom gown Nathan ordered specifically for me." I stood paralyzed, staring at the scissors at my feet. I realized I had just walked right into another one of her despicable traps. Right on cue, the boutique doors burst open. Nathan stormed in like a hurricane, followed by two of Sam's trashy friends. Seeing Sam crying and the dress in tatters, and me standing there with scissors at my feet, Nathan didn't ask a single question. He lunged forward and shoved me violently against the wall. "What the hell is your problem, Lauren? You can't stand seeing me marry someone else, so you ruin her dress? You petty, narrow-minded bitch." I tried to explain. It wasn't me. She did it herself. She framed me, but no one listened. Sam's two friends charged at me. They grabbed my hair and my shirt, yanking and cursing. "Beat some sense into this old hag. How dare you bully Sam?" I was being attacked by three women. My blouse was ripped, the buttons tearing off, exposing my bra. I curled into a defensive ball to protect my injured stomach. Through my tangled hair, I saw Nathan standing there with his arms crossed, watching me get humiliated with cold, ruthless eyes. The boutique staff were too terrified to intervene because Nathan was a VIP client. An overwhelming wave of sheer, degrading humiliation crashed over me. I didn't cry. Tears, at this point, were a luxury I couldn't afford. After the humiliating setup at the bridal boutique, Nathan dragged me forcefully out to the car, throwing me into the back seat like a trash bag. For the entire drive home, he didn't say a word, but the atmosphere was so suffocating I could clearly hear him grinding his teeth. When we got home, he didn't let me go inside the main house. He dragged me straight to the backyard, toward a dilapidated old storage shed we used for junk. It was damp, dark, and filthy. He shoved me violently inside. I tripped and fell hard onto the dusty dirt floor. He coldly slammed the heavy iron door shut, the lock times clicked times into place, sounding like the gates of hell closing. "Stay in there and repent." Nathan's voice echoed through the cracks in the door, accompanied by an order that sent ice through my veins. "Duke, guard the door. If anyone steps out, rip their throat out." Immediately, I heard the aggressive, vicious barking of a dog, followed by the loud clanking of a heavy metal chain hitting the iron door. Duke Times was the massive German Shepherd Nathan had bought a month ago for security. He was huge, incredibly aggressive, and notoriously hostile to strangers. I had been deathly afraid of dogs since childhood, after nearly being mauled by one. Nathan knew my phobia perfectly well, but now, he was weaponizing it to psychologically torture me. Inside the pitch-black shed, the only light was a few weak rays piercing through gaps in the tin roof. The stench of mold and dead rats was nauseating. I curled up into a tight ball in the corner, hugging my knees, my entire body shaking violently. Outside, Duke growled continuously. His claws scraped against the iron door with a terrifying Times screech asterisk. Every time he barked, my heart leaped into my throat. It felt like his razor-sharp teeth were hovering an inch from my neck. I covered my ears, desperately trying to block out the horrifying sounds. Tears of pure terror streamed down my cheeks. The brutal contrast between the inside and outside of the shed made my agony even worse. Through a small crack, I could hear soft jazz music, the clinking of wine glasses, and the loud, cheerful laughter of Nathan and Sam's family coming from the living room. They were throwing a party. They were celebrating their victory, drinking over my pain and terror. While I shivered in the dark, facing a vicious monster, the husband I once loved was raising a toast to the woman who destroyed me. 5 years of love and marital devotion completely died in that exact moment. It died amidst the sheer cruelty and inhumanity of Nathan Hayes. Exactly 1 hour later, Nathan's heavy footsteps approached. He commanded the dog to back down, then unlocked the shed. The harsh beam of his flashlight hit my face, making me squint. He looked down at me cowering in the corner, a disgusted sneer on his lips. "Well, did you learn your lesson? Next time you dare lay a finger on Samantha, it won't just be the shed." I stood up silently. I dusted off my clothes, not uttering a single word. I walked past him and went straight into the bathroom. I looked at my dirt-streaked face and swollen eyes in the mirror. I splashed freezing cold water on my face to wake myself up. Tonight, I had a task far more important than arguing with this piece of garbage. I waited until the entire house descended into silence. The sound of Nathan's snoring and the child's steady breathing echoed down the hall. I quietly grabbed a black coat and snuck out the back door. The freezing night wind whipped against my face, but it couldn't extinguish the roaring inferno inside me. I hailed a taxi and directed it straight to the suburban estate where Hayes and his engineering team were working. It was 2 a.m., but the estate was still ablaze with lights. The frantic clicking of keyboards sounded like a symphony of sheer dedication. Hayes was sitting in front of a massive monitor, his eyes glued to lines of code. His coffee cup had run dry hours ago. Seeing me walk in, he turned around. The welcoming smile on his face vanished instantly when he saw the dark bruises on my arms and the deep scratches on my neck, the aftermath of the bridal boutique assault. Hayes shot up from his chair and rushed over, grabbing my shoulders. His voice trembled with raw fury. "Lauren, who did this to you? Was it him? That bastard hit you." His genuine concern and heartbroken eyes made the strong armor I had built up all day crumble. I leaned against his arm, my voice choking. "I'm fine. They're just surface wounds. What matters is the work, Hayes. Tomorrow is the deadline." Hayes took a deep breath to suppress his rage. He guided me to a chair, then turned to the massive monitor displaying the text. Asterisk asterisk system ready. 100%. Asterisk asterisk. His voice was brimming with confidence and adrenaline. "Don't worry. Everything is finished." We didn't just rewrite the entire source code. We integrated a multi-layer military-grade encryption protocol that Nathan couldn't hack in his wildest dreams. More importantly, I built the backdoor. With one command from you, Nathan's old system will be instantly neutralized, and the new system will take over in a fraction of a second. The users won't even notice a glitch. I looked at the glowing green text on the screen. It felt like watching the sun rise after an impossibly long, dark night. I gripped Hayes's hand tightly, feeling the warmth and reliability radiating from the calluses of the young engineer. "Thank you, Hayes. Thank you and your entire team for working so hard for me. Tomorrow, at the product launch, we are going to show him exactly what karma looks like. I want to see his face when everything he is so arrogant about collapses right in front of his eyes." Hayes nodded firmly, a fire of absolute resolve burning in his eyes. "You just stand on that stage and shine. I'll handle the shadows." Tomorrow is his doomsday. We looked at each other. No more words were needed. An absolute, unspoken synergy flowed between us, two people, sharing the same trench, ready for the final, decisive battle at dawn. I returned from Hayes's secret suburban lab just as the sky was beginning to lighten. I was physically exhausted, but my mind was incredibly alert. It felt like crawling through a pitch-black tunnel and finally seeing a faint sliver of light at the end, fragile, but enough to hold on to. I stopped by Hunter's private investigation office to pick up the final batch of documents before the massive showdown began. Hunter greeted me with a steaming mug of ginger tea. His face was dead serious, as he slid a sealed, brown manila envelope across his desk. His voice was low and gravelly. "Lauren, I just found this in the dumpster behind the private clinic Samantha takes her kid to. She's extremely careful. She shredded it before tossing it, but my guys spent hours piecing it back together. Take a look. This might be the most devastating trump card you have." I took the envelope, my hands trembling slightly. My intuition screamed that it contained an earth-shattering secret. I pulled out a crumpled, taped-together medical document. It was a comprehensive pediatric blood panel for little Leo, the boy Nathan constantly bragged about as his bloodline heir. My eyes scanned the health metrics rapidly, then stopped dead at a bolded line. Asterisk, asterisk, blood, type, AB, asterisk, asterisk. My heart skipped a beat, then began hammering violently against my ribs. I remembered perfectly. In his annual corporate health physicals, Nathan's blood type was O, and Samantha. Years ago, when I took her to a university blood drive, her blood type was also O. The most basic high school biology dictates that two people with type O blood types cannot, under any circumstances asterisk, produce a child with type AB blood. I stared at the taped-up paper, reading it over and over, terrified I was hallucinating. But no. The black ink on white paper, complete with the clinic's red official stamp, was indisputable. A bitter, cynical smile spread across my lips. Tears pricked my eyes not from sorrow, but from the sheer, brutal irony of fate. Asterisk, oh, Nathan, you ruthless bastard. Asterisk, you mercilessly discarded the wife who stood by you for 5 years. You trampled on loyalty and gratitude to chase after a male heir. You strutted around, so proud and arrogant, worshipping that mistress and her child like royalty. And in the end, you are the biggest, most pathetic cuckold on the planet. I pictured Nathan's smug face every time he held the boy, cooing, asterisk, my son looks exactly like his daddy, asterisk, and I found it both hilarious and pathetic. It turned out that exact resemblance was nothing but the delusion of a man blinded by his desperate obsession for a son. Samantha had played a masterclass game. She didn't just steal my husband and my money. She scammed his entire bloodline with a brutal, devastating lie. I carefully folded the lab results and placed them in my purse like a priceless artifact. This was the final, fatal blow. But I wasn't going to play it just yet. I wanted Nathan to climb to the absolute peak of his delusions of grandeur. That way, when he fell, the agony would pierce him to his very core. I walked out of the PI's office. The early morning Austin sun was blinding, but I felt ice cold. Walking past a toy store, I looked at the dolls and model cars in the window, and my heart twinged. Asterisk, if only I could have had a child. If only that boy was truly his. Maybe this tragedy could have been avoided. Or at least, it would have been less brutal. Asterisk, but there are no what-ifs in life. This cruel reality was the final nail in the coffin for any lingering sentiment I had for Nathan. He didn't deserve forgiveness. And he certainly didn't deserve to know the truth too early. Let him dream a little longer, before the real nightmare begins. The night before the software launch, the tension at the company was palpable. I left the office at 10 p.m., having run through every possible disaster scenario with Hayes one last time. The underground parking garage was desolate. The click-clack of my heels on the concrete echoed lonely and loud. Just as I reached for my car door, a shadow stepped out from behind a concrete pillar, blocking my path. The overpowering stench of cheap, cloying perfume hit my nose. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Samantha stood there, arms crossed. Her face was heavily contoured, but it couldn't hide her haggard appearance and the naked greed shining in her eyes. She smirked a look full of contempt and challenge. "Hey, Lauren. Working late? You must be terrified about tomorrow's launch, huh? I heard you bet your entire fortune on this gamble. If it fails, you'll be sleeping on the streets." I looked at her, my voice perfectly calm. "Did you come all the way down here just to spout this garbage? Or did you need more money to spackle over that fake face of yours?" My words hit her right where it hurt. She lunged forward, jabbing a long, red acrylic nail right in my face. "Don't act so tough, bitch. I'm here to give you one last chance. Nathan says you need to transfer your remaining 10% equity to him before tomorrow morning. If you don't, You know exactly what he's going to do. He said you're just the golden goose. Once you stop laying eggs, it's time to slaughter the bird. Asterisk the golden goose. Asterisk. That phrase felt like a slap to the face, entirely stripping away the blatant exploitation Nathan had subjected me to for 5 years. So, in his eyes, I was never a wife or a partner. I was just a tool for him to extract cash and climb the corporate ladder. I swatted Sam's hand away violently. My eyes blazed with a fury that made her flinch and step back. I took a step forward, my voice hard as steel and freezing cold. You go back and tell your fake husband that I am not a goose. I am the person who fed and kept your parasitic family alive all this time. You want my equity? Fine. Come and take it. But be careful you don't choke to death. Furious, Sam raised her hand, intending to slap me, like she usually relied on Nathan to do. But this time, I didn't hold back. I caught her wrist midair, gripping it so hard she shrieked in pain. Then, with my other hand, I slapped her across the face. Asterisk, hard. Asterisk, twice. Asterisk, smack. Smack. Asterisk. The sharp sound echoed loudly in the empty garage. Sam clutched her face, staring at me in absolute shock, as if looking at a ghost. You hit me? I leaned in so close my lips almost brushed her ear, whispering distinctly. Those 2 slaps are returning the favor for what you and your thug brother did to me in the hospital. Wake up, Sam. You think stealing my husband means you won? You're just clinging to a pile of garbage that I willingly threw away. Get out of my sight before I have security, throw you out onto the street like a stray dog. Trembling, her face drained of all color, she realized the weak, submissive Lauren was dead. In her place was a woman with absolutely nothing left to lose. She backed away, eventually turning and running, screaming back at me in desperation. You just wait. You're going to die tomorrow. I'm going to watch you cry. I watched her pathetic figure disappear around the corner, feeling not a single ounce of emotion. The big day finally arrived. The main hall of the Austin Convention Center was lavishly decorated. Hundreds of journalists, tech investors, and VIP guests had arrived early. I stood in the wings, adjusting the lapels of my pristine white blazer, taking a deep breath to steady my racing heart. Today, I wasn't just launching a piece of tech software. I was launching a brand new version of myself, strong, resilient, and utterly unapologetic. At exactly 9 a.m., the grand doors to the hall swung open. Nathan didn't walk in quietly like an employee. He strutted in arrogantly, with Samantha clinging to his arm. He wore a slick, glossy black tuxedo, his hair slicked back with an infuriatingly smug expression. Samantha wore a bright red, high-slit evening gown, her makeup as heavy as if she were attending the Oscars. This mismatched, garish couple instantly drew the attention of the crowd, as well as the embarrassed, pitying stares of our company employees. People whispered. Some shook their heads in disgust. Others looked at me with sympathy. But Nathan and Sam didn't care. They walked down the aisle as if they were the true masters of the event, a king and queen preparing for their coronation. Nathan led Sam to the front row seats reserved for strategic shareholders. He crossed his legs, looking up at the stage with a challenging smirk. He was absolutely certain I was terrified. He was confident I had surrendered to his blackmail regarding the source code. He came today to savor his victory and witness my public submission. I walked out onto the stage. The blazing spotlight hit my face, blinding me for a second. The applause rolled through the room. I smiled the most radiant, confident smile I could possibly muster. I gripped the microphone, my voice echoing clearly and powerfully. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today for the launch of our company's most passionate endeavor over the last 5 years. This isn't just software. This is the crystallization of blood, sweat, and silent sacrifice. I spoke eloquently about our vision and our mission, but notably, I did not mention Nathan's name a single time. I did not introduce him as the Chief Technology Officer, as protocol would dictate. Down in the front row, the smirk on Nathan's face began to contort. He frowned, turning to whisper something angrily to Sam. Sam pouted and glared at me, gripping her phone tightly, ready to record the moment I was humiliated. I glanced over them, locking eyes with Hayes, who was standing quietly in the back corner of the room. Hayes gave a subtle nod. The silent confirmation. Asterisk. Everything is ready. Asterisk. My deliberate omission of Nathan's role acted like a spark to dynamite. He began shifting uncomfortably, checking his watch, then glaring at the massive presentation screen. He was burning with impatience. He was waiting for the moment I would have to bow my head and invite him up or publicly announce my capitulation. But I calmly continued my presentation. Slide after slide transitioned smoothly, showcasing the software's groundbreaking features. The atmosphere in the room heated up not from the temperature, but from the escalating, silent tension between me and the cheating bastard sitting right below me. When my presentation reached the live demo segment, Nathan couldn't hold back anymore. He shot out of his chair and aggressively snatched a microphone from an MC standing nearby. His voice roared through the hall, drowning out the soft background music. Stop! Everybody stop right now! He pointed directly at the massive screen. This product is absolute garbage. It contains catastrophic security flaws that Lauren here is intentionally hiding to defraud investors. The entire convention hall gasped in shock. Hundreds of eyes snapped toward the man screaming in the aisle. Journalists frantically pointed their cameras at Nathan. Flashbulbs went off like lightning. Sam sat in the front row, smirking, her arms crossed, waiting for the spectacular drama she had anticipated all night. Standing on stage, I didn't look panicked or terrified, exactly as Nathan had calculated. I simply raised an eyebrow, looking down at him with profound pity. Nathan, what are you talking about? On what grounds are you claiming our product is flawed? Nathan let out a manic laugh. He took long, aggressive strides up the stairs onto the stage, shoving me aside. He pulled his personal laptop from his briefcase and jacked a cable straight into the central projection system. He screamed into the microphone. I am the architect. I am the creator. Of course I know where it's broken. Let me prove to everyone what a liar this woman is. Nathan's fingers flew across his keyboard. His face twisted into an ugly, triumphant snarl. He opened a command terminal and rapidly typed in the execution sequence for his kill switch, the lethal malware he had embedded to crash the system and hold the company hostage. He turned to the audience, his voice booming. The second I hit enter, this entire system will collapse, and all data will evaporate. This is the consequence of burning bridges. The entire hall held its breath. The tension was so thick, you could hear a pin drop. Nathan turned to look at me one last time. His eyes practically screamed, "Asterisk, you're dead, asterisk." Then, he slammed his thumb down on the enter key with a loud times twok asterisk. He waited for the blue screen of death. He waited for the investors to scream in outrage. 1 second, 2 seconds, 10 seconds passed. The massive screen behind him remained brilliantly lit. The software interface continued running flawlessly, in fact. It looked even smoother and faster than before. Instead of a system crash, a sleek, emerald green notification box popped up on the screen, blinking proudly. Asterisk, asterisk, system secured. Maximum encryption protocols active. Malware neutralized. Asterisk, asterisk, Nathan's eyes bulged out of his skull. He slammed his hands onto the keyboard, typing the execution command again. Once, twice, 3 times. Nothing happened. Cold sweat began pouring down his forehead, soaking his dress shirt collar. What the hell is this? Why won't it crash? Why? He muttered, his voice cracking with absolute panic. He turned to me, his eyes wide with sheer terror, as if he were looking at a monster. I slowly walked up to him. I took the microphone back from his shaking hand and smiled an ice-cold, bone-chilling smile. What exactly are you looking for, Nathan? Are you looking for that outdated, buggy source code you tried to use to blackmail me? I'm so sorry to inform you, but that piece of garbage was scrubbed from our servers last night. Down in the audience, whispers broke out. A few people started chuckling. Samantha shot up from her seat, her face drained of all color. As for Nathan, he stood isolated on the glowing stage, his hands trembling. He looked incredibly pathetic, like a clown whose mask had just been ripped off in front of a packed circus tent. He still couldn't believe his eyes. His shaking fingers reached out to type the command one more time, but the result was exactly the same. That mocking, emerald green notification. Asterisk, system secured. Asterisk. Right as his panic reached its absolute peak, Hayes slowly walked out from the wings. He wasn't wearing a flashy suit. He wore a crisp white dress shirt. His demeanor was calm and composed, a stark contrast to Nathan's manic, out-of-control meltdown. Hayes bowed slightly to the audience, then locked his unwavering gaze onto Nathan. His deep, steady voice echoed through the speakers. "Nathan, you were far too confident in your own abilities, and you forgot that technology evolves by the hour. That outdated source code, riddled with the security backdoors you intentionally embedded to hold this company hostage. We threw it in the digital trash can last night." Hayes signaled the tech booth. The main screen transitioned to display a brand new, vastly superior, and infinitely more complex system architecture. He continued, "Over the last 20 days, my team of engineers and Lauren worked without sleep to write an entirely new source code from scratch. We didn't patch your system. We replaced it. Therefore, the master key you're holding right now only unlocks a door to absolute nothingness." Nathan staggered backward, his face ghastly pale. The laptop slipped from his hands, hitting the stage floor with a loud Times crack asterisk, shattering into pieces just like his colossal, arrogant ego. I stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with Hayes, looking directly at the man I once shared a life with. It was time to drop the final curtain on this pathetic play. I signaled my assistant to pull up another slide. It wasn't a tech diagram. It was financial data. Detailed bank statements flashed on the screen, exposing massive, shady withdrawals Nathan had siphoned from the company over the last 5 years. Client entertainment, system maintenance fees, strategic consulting, all funneled directly into shell accounts registered under Samantha's family members. I gripped the microphone. I suppressed the violent surge of emotion in my chest, keeping my voice hard as iron. "Ladies and gentlemen, this man didn't just betray my trust as a husband. He is a parasite who bled my family's company dry. The total amount he embezzled exceeds $500,000, not including the illicit kickbacks he took from vendors. He used that money to fund his mistress, buy luxury cars, and secure a high-rise condo, all while our employees had to scrape by paycheck to paycheck." The entire hall erupted in shock. The initial looks of admiration for the young tech executive mutated instantly into absolute disgust and revulsion. Nathan stood there, isolated and pathetic under the glaring stage lights, his true nature completely exposed to the world. I looked at him. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt a deep, overwhelming sadness at how dark, twisted, and utterly vile human nature could be. The truth was out. Cornered like a trapped animal, Nathan began thrashing in sheer desperation. He lunged at me, his eyes bloodshot, screaming like a lunatic. "You're lying. You're framing me. I am a founding partner. I own 30% of this company. You have no right to fire me. Half of this company belongs to me." Before he could even touch me, 2 massive, muscular security guards tackled him, twisting his arms behind his back. The chaotic, violent struggle playing out on the pristine corporate stage made the investors in the audience shake their heads in absolute disgust. Samantha had already quietly slipped out the back doors. Hayes stepped forward. He pulled a thick legal dossier from his briefcase and slammed it onto the podium. The heavy times, thud times of the paperwork echoed loudly. He looked at Nathan with deep pity. "Nathan, you really should review your employment contract and the corporate bylaws you signed 5 years ago. Section 14, Clause 3 clearly states, if any executive board member commits corporate embezzlement resulting in severe financial damages or violates professional ethics, the board of directors has the absolute right to terminate their position and seize all preferred equity to offset the damages." I picked up where Hayes left off, my voice as calm as a still lake. "My lawyers have already filed federal criminal charges against you for corporate embezzlement and wire fraud regarding the $500,000 you stole, coupled with your intentional attempt to sabotage our network in front of hundreds of witnesses today. How much of your equity do you really think you're keeping? Actually, you should probably be more worried about how many years you're going to spend in federal prison." Hearing the word Times prison asterisk, it was as if someone ripped the spine right out of Nathan's body. He went entirely limp, collapsing to his knees on the stage. The arrogant, aggressive monster from minutes ago vanished completely, replaced by the sheer, paralyzing terror of a man who realized he had just lost absolutely everything. The security guards hoisted him up by his armpits and dragged him out of the hall like a sack of garbage. He desperately craned his neck back, his eyes pleading with me. Lauren, please save me. I was wrong. Don't sue me, we're still husband and wife. His pathetic, wailing screams echoed through the hall, slowly fading as the heavy double doors swung shut behind him. I stood there, watching the broken silhouette of the man I used to love more than my own life. A wave of numbness washed over me. There was no joy in victory. There was no thrill of revenge, just a profound, devastating sorrow for a wasted life. Money and lust had mutated a passionate, ambitious young man into a pathetic criminal. I turned to look at Hayes. I saw deep understanding and silent support in his eyes. The storm had passed, but the wreckage it left behind in my soul would be hard to clear. Kicked out of the convention center, Nathan wandered the streets of Austin like a ghost. He didn't dare go to his old house. He knew I had changed the locks. He couldn't go back to the company for fear of being arrested. In his absolute despair, he remembered his final sanctuary, the luxury high-rise condo he had bought for Samantha and her family using his embezzled funds. He told himself that even if he lost his career and his money, he still had Sam. He still had his son, his bloodline heir. As long as he had his family, he could start over. He hailed a cab, rushing back to his secret love nest, desperately hoping to find some warmth and comfort from the woman he had sacrificed his entire life to provide for. But when the condo door swung open, the scene before him made him freeze. The normally pristine, luxurious apartment looked like a war zone. Clothes, designer bags, and shoes were scattered everywhere. Sam was frantically shoving expensive designer items into a massive suitcase. Her mother, Brenda, was aggressively sweeping the remaining expensive liquor bottles and designer decor into a duffel bag. Seeing Nathan walk in, looking completely disheveled and dead-eyed, neither of them looked surprised or concerned. They simply paused for a second before resuming their frantic packing, their demeanor chillingly indifferent. Nathan stammered, his voice shaking. Sam, what are you doing? Why are you packing? Mom, why are you here? Sam didn't even bother to look up. She aggressively folded a sequin dress and answered curtly. What does it look like? Moving out. Did you think me and my son were going to sit here and wait for the feds to show up and seize the property? The news of you getting fired and sued is all over the internet. You're completely broke and heading to prison. I have to look out for my future and my kids' future. Her ruthless, transactional words hit Nathan like a bucket of ice water, obliterating his final, pathetic illusion of true love. Brenda stood nearby, clutching a valuable antique vase. She scoffed, her face twisting in disgust. Humph, I thought you were a big shot. Turns out you're just a fake CEO. I told Sam a long time ago, a man without money is garbage. You can't even save yourself right now. Don't even think about dragging my daughter down into the mud with you. She glared at Nathan with pure contempt, a stark contrast to the sickeningly sweet, sycophantic praise she used to shower on him when he was throwing cash around like confetti. The blinding speed at which human loyalty evaporates when disaster strikes left Nathan paralyzed with agony. He lunged forward and grabbed Sam's arm, his voice cracking. What are you saying, Sam? Who did I do all of this for? For you, for our son, for this family. Now that I'm down, you're just going to abandon me? Sam violently yanked her arm out of his grasp. The way she looked at him now held only sheer disgust and extreme annoyance, like looking at a blood-sucking leech attached to her leg. Nathan wasn't willing to give up. He collapsed to his knees amidst the scattered luggage, desperately wrapping his arms around Sam's legs. The tears of a broken man streamed down his hollow face. He played his final card, hoping to salvage whatever fragments of a family he had left. Sam, please. You can leave me, but think about our son. Leo needs a father. I'll get a minimum wage job. I'll start from the bottom. I promise I'll take care of you guys. Don't take my son away. He is the only bloodline of the Hayes family. His pathetic, desperate wails echoed in the empty, ransacked room, sounding like the agonizing cries of a wounded animal. Sam stopped packing. She looked down at the man kneeling at her feet. A cynical, deeply mocking smirk spread across her beautiful but venomous face. She leaned down, her lips hovering right next to Nathan's ear. She whispered every single word slowly and distinctly, wanting each syllable to stab directly into his heart. "You love that kid that much, huh? Poor Nathan. Did you really think Leo was your biological son? Think about it. You and Lauren were married for 5 years and couldn't conceive. The doctors told you your sperm count was incredibly low. Natural conception was nearly impossible. Yet you sleep with me a few times and I magically get pregnant? Didn't you think that was a little strange?" Nathan's head snapped up. His eyes widened in sheer horror, staring at Sam, as his mouth opened and closed without making a sound. Sam sneered, delivering the final, lethal blow. "Let me enlighten you so you don't have to feel guilty. Leo is my ex-boyfriend's kid. The guy dumped me when he found out I was pregnant. I was broke and desperate, and then I met you, a fat, rich target so desperately, blindly obsessed with having a son. All I had to do was play the innocent country girl. You bought it hook, line, and sinker. You gladly played stepdad for 4 years. Thanks for raising another man's kid for me. But the show is over now. Your usefulness has expired." Sam's words detonated in Nathan's ears like a nuclear bomb. His arms dropped to his sides. His entire body collapsed onto the floor like a pile of wet mud. He had betrayed his loyal wife. He had trampled on gratitude. He had sacrificed his career, his reputation, and committed felonies, all for his desperate obsession with a male heir. And in the end, the brutal truth was laid bare. The son he cherished, pampered, and bragged about to the world was the spawn of another man. He had lost absolutely everything: his wife, his money, his career, his freedom, his dignity, and now, his fake son. The manic laughter of Samantha and the vicious curses of Brenda echoed in his ears, but Nathan couldn't hear anything anymore. He lay there, staring blankly at the ceiling. His mind was nothing but a blinding white void of absolute, terminal despair. After that fateful day, I didn't go straight home. I decided to host a small dinner party for my entire corporate staff. The atmosphere at the Riverside restaurant was incredibly lively. Glasses clinked, and joyful laughter echoed endlessly. Looking at the radiant faces of my employees, the people who had swallowed their pride and endured Nathan's arrogance alongside me, a profound wave of emotion washed over me. Hayes sat next to me, quietly placing a piece of grilled salmon onto my plate. His eyes were warm and peaceful, like a calm autumn lake, a stark contrast to the calculating, predatory gaze I had to face every day with Nathan. I realized that happiness sometimes isn't about holding the entire world in your hands. It's about having genuine people willing to stand by your side when the hurricane passes. The party ended, and everyone headed home. Hayes offered to drive me, but I declined. I wanted to walk for a bit, to soak in the feeling of absolute freedom I hadn't experienced in 5 years. I strolled down the familiar brick-paved sidewalk outside the company headquarters. The cool night breeze blew through my hair, washing away the last remnants of my anxiety. Suddenly, my footsteps faltered. Under the dim, flickering yellow light of a street lamp, a skeletal, hunched silhouette of a man was leaning against an old oak tree. His sunken eyes were staring directly at me. It was Nathan. It had only been a few days, but he looked so horribly deteriorated, I almost didn't recognize him. The bespoke designer suit he wore was now deeply wrinkled and filthy. An unkempt beard covered his gaunt face. His eyes were bloodshot, radiating an aura of total madness and despair. Seeing me, he staggered forward, reaching out as if to grab my hand, but quickly retracted it in shame when he met my freezing, emotionless gaze. His voice was hoarse and trembling, sounding like wind whistling through a cracked window. "Lauren, looks like you had a great time celebrating. You must be so thrilled seeing me like this, aren't you?" I took a step back, maintaining a safe distance, and replied calmly, "I'm not gloating, Nathan. I am simply living my life. The life I should have been living a long time ago if it weren't for your betrayal. Why are you here? Did you come to see if I'd cry tears of pity for you?" Nathan let out a bitter, agonizing laugh. He looked toward the restaurant, where Hayes had just driven away. His eyes flashed with a mix of jealousy and tragically late regret. He bowed his head, his voice cracking. I saw you smile at him. That smile. It's been so long since I saw you smile at me like that. I traded a diamond for a piece of fake plastic glass. I was so wrong, Lauren. I lost everything. His apology, spoken in this exact moment, sounded so incredibly cheap and meaningless. If he had recognized the value of his family a little earlier, if he hadn't let his greed and lust completely blind his logic, we wouldn't be standing at this absolute dead end. But spilled water can never be gathered back into the glass, just as my heart, having completely died, could never beat for him again. I looked at him. I felt no hatred, only a pathetic pity for a ruined human being. Go home, Nathan. Don't ever come looking for me again. Between us, even being strangers is a luxury now. Take responsibility for what you've done. I turned my back and walked away decisively, leaving him standing alone in the pitch-black night, isolated, pathetic, gnawing on the agonizing pain of a regret that came far, far too late. Later, through police reports and security footage, I learned exactly what happened to Nathan on that fateful, rainy night. After leaving me, Nathan wandered the streets of Austin like a wandering ghost. A violent thunderstorm suddenly ripped through the city. The torrential rain poured down, as if trying to wash away the filth of the city, but it couldn't wash away the rotting decay inside Nathan's soul. He stumbled into a cheap roadside liquor store, bought 2 bottles of the cheapest whiskey available, and chugged them like water, desperately hoping the alcohol would drown out his agonizing reality. But the more he drank, the more painfully sober he became. And the more sober he was, the clearer the memories played in his mind. Sam's humiliating insults, Brenda's absolute disgust, and most devastating of all, the brutal truth about his fake son. Those memories drilled into his brain like 1,000 rusted knives. He had lost everything. His career, his money, his pride, and his manhood. He had betrayed his devoted wife, trampled on gratitude, and committed felonies, all for Samantha and her family. And his reward was being ruthlessly discarded into the gutter the second he lost his money. The driving rain smashed against the pavement, accompanied by violent cracks of lightning that illuminated Nathan's face, a face twisted, mangled by sheer agony and absolute, psychotic madness. He staggered back to the luxury condo, the home he had bought with embezzled funds. The door was unlocked. Inside, it was pitch black. Only the sound of heavy snoring echoed from the master bedroom. Sam and her family hadn't moved out entirely yet. Perhaps the storm delayed them, or perhaps they simply thought Nathan didn't have the guts to ever return. Nathan slumped onto the living room floor, leaning against the wall. The empty liquor bottles rolled away. In the darkness, the demon he had suppressed for months finally woke up. It fed on his absolute hatred and the paralyzing sensation of ultimate betrayal. He remembered my cold, indifferent eyes from earlier. He remembered Sam's mocking smirk when she told him the boy wasn't his. Asterisk. I lost everything. Asterisk. The lightning flashed again, reflecting off the cold steel of a large chef's knife resting on the kitchen island, the exact knife he used to use to cut fruit for Sam. The exact knife Sam had used to fake her suicide attempt, to frame me in the hospital. Nathan stood up, grabbed the knife, and slowly ran his thumb across the razor-sharp edge. A manic, soulless smile stretched across his face. His mind could no longer differentiate between right and wrong, good and evil. Only one single deafening thought screamed in his skull. Asterisk. If I lost everything, then none of you get to live in peace. You used me. You sucked me dry. I am going to show you exactly what hell looks like. Asterisk. He turned and walked, taking slow, deliberate steps toward the master bedroom, where the people who pushed him over the edge were sleeping soundly, completely unaware that the Grim Reaper was standing right beside their bed. The next morning, I had just arrived at the office and hadn't even warmed my chair when Hunter, my PI, called. His voice was frantic and incredibly grave. Lauren. Something massive just happened. Samantha's condo caught fire early this morning. The police just cordoned off the scene. But my sources inside the department told me there were no survivors. All 4 people inside Sam, her parents, and the boy are dead. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. My heart stopped beating for a solid second. Even though I hated them to my core, even though I wanted them to pay, the horrific death of an entire family, including an innocent child, left me absolutely paralyzed and shivering with a bone-deep chill. According to the midday news, the fire was reported around 3 a.m. It started in the master bedroom and rapidly consumed the entire unit. It took firefighters 2 hours to control the blaze, but everything inside was reduced to ash. Initially, everyone assumed it was a tragic accident, an electrical fault, or a gas leak, a common tragedy in high-rise buildings. But my intuition screamed that it wasn't that simple. Nathan had disappeared. His phone was off the grid. The timing was far too coincidental. By that afternoon, Hunter sent me a preliminary, leaked autopsy report he had procured through his old police contacts. Asterisk. The initial coroner's report showed very little soot in the victim's lungs. This proved they were dead before the fire started. Furthermore, despite the severe burns on their bodies, deep, fatal stab wounds were found on their necks and chests. Asterisk. This wasn't an accident. This was a ruthless, calculated massacre, covered up by arson to destroy the evidence. I sat in my office, looking out at the gray, overcast sky. A terrifying chill ran down my spine. Nathan, the man who used to be afraid of the sight of blood, the man who was too timid to ever raise his voice at anyone, had mutated into a bloodthirsty monster, brutally murdering the people he once claimed were his true family. Did betrayal and hatred truly have the power to rot a human soul so completely? I shuddered, imagining the scene from last night. The rain drowning out their screams, the raging fire incinerating their humanity. Asterisk, you reap what you sow. Asterisk. That phrase applied to their lives so cruelly and so violently. But regardless of their sins against me, this level of violence was an unimaginably heavy price. It was a tragedy that made even a survivor like me feel an immense weight in my chest. The police rapidly launched a massive manhunt for this sensational quadruple homicide. As the ex-wife of the primary suspect, Nathan Hayes, I was called into the precinct for questioning. I honestly detailed the escalating tensions between us, his recent firing, and his discovery regarding the illegitimate child. However, the most crucial clue that would ultimately convict Nathan didn't come from my testimony. It came from Hunter's absolute professionalism. The moment he heard about the fire, Hunter didn't sit around waiting for the police. Using his experience as a former detective, he immediately canvassed the security cameras of every business and intersection within a 3-mile radius of the condo during the timeline of the murders. He sent me 2 short video clips. They were worth their weight in gold. The first clip showed a man wearing a dark raincoat with the hood pulled low, acting extremely paranoid. He walked into a 2-4-hour automated gas station, about 2 miles from the crime scene, at 2 a.m. He purchased a 5-gallon gas can and filled it. Although he deliberately kept his face hidden from the cameras, his slight limp, his hunched posture, and the expensive, worn-out Italian leather shoes he always wore completely gave him away. It was Nathan. The second clip was even more horrifying. Around 4 a.m., after the fire had already engulfed the condo, that same man appeared in a desolate suburban park. He was frantically digging a hole under a massive, ancient oak tree, burying a black plastic trash bag. Hunter had driven out to that exact park in the dead of night. He dug up the spot and found a bloody chef's knife and a torn, blood-soaked dress shirt. He carefully preserved the scene, recorded the entire extraction process, and immediately called the homicide detectives to seize the evidence. I sat in my office watching the videos Hunter sent, my hands gripping the desk to stop from shaking. The image of Nathan trudging through the freezing rain, carrying a gas can to commit murder, and then frantically burying the evidence. I couldn't believe this was the man I lived with for 5 years. Absolute despair had shoved him straight down into a bottomless abyss of pure evil. I handed all of this footage over to the lead homicide detective. He looked at me, nodding in deep gratitude. "Thank you, Miss Lauren. And thank Hunter. This evidence is critical. It perfectly aligns with the crime scene forensics. We are issuing a nationwide manhunt and an Amber Alert protocol for Nathan Hayes immediately." Stepping out of the police precinct, it was late afternoon. The sunset painted the Texas sky a violent, blood-red hue. I took a deep breath, trying to purge the smell of gunpowder and death that seemed to linger in my mind. Asterisk, the net of justice is vast. Its meshes are wide, but nothing slips through. Asterisk, Nathan might be able to run from his conscience, but he could never outrun the law. After handing the evidence to the police, Hunter strongly advised me to leave the city and lay low at a secure location for my own safety. But I refused. I didn't want to live like a fugitive in hiding when I was the victim. Furthermore, the company had just recovered from a massive crisis, and I had a mountain of work to oversee. I truly believed that with the intense nationwide manhunt, Nathan would be apprehended within hours. However, I drastically underestimated the sheer, psychotic recklessness of a man backed into an absolute dead end. That night, I stayed late at the office to finish a backlog of paperwork. Outside, another torrential downpour had started. The rain violently lashed against the glass windows, sounding like a dark omen. At 10 p.m., I took the elevator down to the underground parking garage. The vast concrete space was eerily silent. The only sounds were the low hum of the ventilation fans and the echoing click-clack times of my own heels. Just as I pulled my keys out to unlock my car, a dark shadow launched itself from behind a concrete pillar. It moved with terrifying speed. Before I could even process what was happening, a muscular, filthy arm clamped violently around my neck in a chokehold. A freezing, razor-sharp piece of metal was pressed directly against my jugular. The nauseating stench of unwashed clothes, stale liquor, and the metallic, sickening smell of dried blood assaulted my nose, making me gag. Don't scream. If you scream, I'll send you straight to hell to meet your parents right now. The hoarse, demonic voice hissed directly into my ear. It was Nathan. I tried desperately to remain calm. I glanced at his reflection in the car window. His face was gaunt and skeletal. His beard was overgrown and filthy. His bloodshot eyes bulged with the manic, erratic energy of absolute psychosis. He looked exactly like a wounded, rabid animal in its final death throes. I swallowed hard, my voice trembling slightly. Nathan, what are you doing? You already killed Sam's entire family. Do you want to kill me too? Let me go. You can't escape the police. Nathan let out a terrifying, hacking laugh. It echoed off the concrete walls, sounding utterly morbid. Escape? Where the hell am I supposed to escape to? I lost everything. Lauren, my money, my career, my pride, and that bastard child I thought was my son. It was all a lie. The only thing that's real right now is death. He pressed the blade harder against my skin. I could feel a tiny sting of pain. I came down here to take you with me. We are husband and wife, for better or for worse, till death do us part. I refuse to go to hell alone. I'm too scared to be alone, Lauren. The sheer insanity in his words sent a paralyzing chill down my spine. He didn't want money. He didn't want to survive. He just wanted to drag me down into the grave with him to satisfy his blind, selfish hatred. Just as I closed my eyes in absolute despair, bracing for the worst, a deep, commanding voice boomed through the garage. Nathan, drop the knife right now. Look at what you're doing. Are you trying to destroy the last microscopic shred of your humanity? Hayes stepped out from behind a parked delivery van. He held his hands up in a placating gesture, his eyes locked fiercely onto Nathan. Hayes's sudden appearance startled Nathan. The knife at my throat loosened just a fraction of an inch. But Nathan's eyes instantly flared with violent jealousy and rage at the sight of Hayes. You! It's you! Nathan screamed, his voice cracking with fury. You and this cheating whore teamed up to destroy me. I'm going to kill both of you tonight. In that split second, when his focus shifted entirely to Hayes, I used every ounce of strength I had in my body. I lifted my stiletto heel and stomped down as violently as I could, directly onto his instep. Nathan howled in agonizing pain and stumbled backward. I ripped myself out of his grip and sprinted toward Hayes. Nathan recovered instantly and charged after me, the knife raised high in the air. Hayes didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, throwing his body perfectly in front of mine, entirely prepared to take the fatal stab wound meant for me. But before the blade could even touch Hayes, the deafening wail of police sirens erupted, shattering the silence of the night. From every single entrance and exit of the underground garage, dozens of heavily armed SWAT officers swarmed in. Blinding tactical flashlights, an Esti, pinned Nathan, illuminating his deranged face. "Austin PD, drop the weapon and get on the ground. You are surrounded." The booming voice over the police megaphone carried absolute, lethal authority. It turned out Hunter and his investigative team had been tracking my location 24/7 for my protection. They were just waiting for Nathan to show his face to spring the trap. Realizing he was completely boxed in, Nathan panicked entirely. He swung the knife wildly in the air, screaming incoherent, psychotic threats. But the exhausted strength of a drunken man, who had been running from the law for days, was no match for highly trained tactical officers. In a flash, an officer delivered a brutal, sweeping kick, knocking the knife out of Nathan's hand. Instantly, he was tackled and slammed face first onto the freezing concrete. His arms were violently twisted behind his back. The cold steel handcuffs snapped shut with a sharp Times, click asterisk, putting a final, definitive end to the life of a monster. As he was being dragged away, walking past where I stood, Nathan violently craned his neck to look back at me. His eyes no longer held murderous rage. They held an ocean of absolute despair and soul-crushing regret. He wailed, his voice breaking into pieces. "Lauren, why did you do this to me? I was your husband. I just wanted a son. Why?" Asterisk. Why? Asterisk. I stood there, leaning heavily against Hayes' shoulder. I watched the man I used to love, more than my own life, being dragged away like a rabid dog. I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt incredibly empty, like an abandoned house after a hurricane. I spoke softly, my voice light but clear enough for him to hear. "Because you forgot the most basic rule of life, Nathan. If you want sweet fruit, you have to plant good seeds. You sowed betrayal, cruelty, and greed. And now, you are reaping your own absolute destruction." The police cruiser sped away into the rainy night, its sirens wailing, carrying Nathan and the horrific tragedies of my past away forever. Leaving me, finally, with the absolute peace I deserved. 3 months later, the capital murder trial of Nathan Hayes commenced, drawing massive media and public attention. The courtroom was packed to the brim. A heavy, somber atmosphere blanketed the room. I sat in the gallery reserved for interested parties. I looked toward the defendant's table. Nathan stood there, his head bowed. His head had been shaved. The oversized, baggy orange jumpsuit made his emaciated, skeletal frame look even more pathetic. In just a few months, he had aged 20 years. There was absolutely nothing left of the arrogant, flashy CEO he used to be. The presiding judge read the indictment with a booming, authoritative voice. Every word felt like a nail being hammered into Nathan's coffin. Asterisk. The act of murdering 4 individuals, including an elderly couple and a minor child, followed by arson to destroy evidence, is a crime of extraordinary cruelty, demonstrating a complete lack of humanity and zero potential for rehabilitation. Asterisk. When the judge announced the maximum sentence under Texas law, the death penalty, the entire courtroom gasped. From the back rows, the agonizing wails of Nathan's mother echoed through the hall. She fainted into the arms of her relatives. Nathan stood there trembling. His legs gave out, and he collapsed onto his knees, tears streaming down his hollow, sunken face. Before being escorted back to death row to await execution, Nathan begged for one final chance to speak with me. Through the thick, bulletproof glass in the visitation room, I looked at him. My heart held no more hatred, only a profound, heavy pity for a wasted human life. Nathan picked up the phone receiver. His hand shook violently as he pressed it against the glass, as if trying to touch me one last time. His voice was choked and broken. "Lauren, I'm sorry. I know it's too late to say anything now. I just want you. I want you to live a good life. If there is a next life, I swear I will be a horse or a mule to repay my debt to you." I looked deep into his eyes. The eyes that were once filled with greed and calculation now held only the tragically late remorse of a man walking toward his grave. I spoke softly. "Nathan, The debts and grudges between us are finished. Go in peace and pay the price for your crimes. I will not hate you anymore. Because holding on to hatred is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. In this life, you chose the wrong path. I hope that in whatever world comes next, you learn how to be a decent human being before you try to love anyone. I hung up the phone, turned my back, and walked away. Behind me, Nathan's agonizing, remorseful sobs echoed through the glass, but I never turned around. The heavy steel doors closed shut, permanently locking the agonizing past behind them. In front of me was the brilliant, warm sunshine of a brand new day. 3 years passed. Time, like a cool stream of water, slowly washed away the scars in my soul. My software company, with Hayes standing firmly by my side, grew exponentially. We officially IPO'd on the NASDAQ, becoming one of the leading tech firms in the state. On the day I rang the opening bell, standing on the balcony, looking down at the cheering crowds, I silently thanked my Father in heaven for watching over his little girl. I thanked the storms that forged me into the strong, resilient, and fiercely proud woman I am today. Hayes and I held a small, intimate wedding ceremony on a quiet beach in Malibu. Only a few close friends and loyal company employees attended. No loud music, no extravagant flexing, just the rhythmic crashing of the ocean waves and genuine, heartfelt vows. Hayes held my hand as we walked barefoot on the soft white sand. The ocean breeze blew my white dress, carrying the salty, fresh scent of the sea. I looked at the man beside me, the man who came to me when I was at my absolute darkest, using his sincerity and infinite patience to heal my shattered heart. We didn't make grandiose promises about eternity. We just promised to grow old together, to share simple, quiet dinners every evening. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in vibrant strokes of red and gold, I rested my head on Hayes's shoulder. I looked out toward the distant horizon, where the sun was slowly dipping into the ocean, preparing for a brilliant, radiant sunrise tomorrow. The past with Nathan, with the agony and the betrayal, was now just a sad memory, an incredibly expensive lesson that I had neatly packed into a corner of my mind. I realized that life is, ultimately, incredibly fair. It takes something away from you, but it will always compensate you with something far more worthy, as long as you never ever give up hope and maintain a kind heart. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath of the fresh, clean air of absolute freedom and happiness. An old chapter had completely closed, and a brand new journey was opening up, vast and radiantly beautiful. I smiled, squeezed Hayes's hand tightly, and stepped forward together into the light, where love and beautiful things were waiting for us. Asterisk, ladies and gentlemen, for a woman, true happiness is found when she is financially independent and maintains a kind, unyielding soul. Asterisk, asterisk. The sweetest revenge is never an eye for an eye. It is letting go of the hatred, to live a life that is infinitely more brilliant, successful, and peaceful than the person who hurt you could ever imagine. Asterisk, asterisk. We hope this story gives strength to anyone currently facing storms in their marriage or their life. Always believe that after the rain, the sun will shine again, and those who live with kindness will always find their happy ending. Asterisk.